The metal doors of the council chamber opened with a loud hiss. Ambassador Kira walked slowly across the cold floor. Her footsteps echoed in the huge room. Above her, the ceiling stretched so high she could barely see the top. The walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to move when she looked at them. The alien beings sat on tall chairs that looked like thrones. They were much bigger than humans. Their bodies were long and thin like giant insects. Their skin was dark green and shiny. Each one had 6 arms and eyes that looked like broken glass. When they moved, their joints made clicking sounds. Kira stopped at the center of the room. A bright light shined down on her from above. She felt very small and alone. The aliens stared at her with their many eyes. She could feel their hate and disgust. High Regent Vexthal was the largest alien in the room. He sat in the biggest chair at the front. His voice sounded like grinding metal when he spoke. "Human," he said. "Your species owes the Zephyrian Empire much payment. You have not given us what we asked for. This makes us very angry." Kira lifted her chin. She would not show fear. "Earth has had many problems. The crop sickness killed half our food. The mining accident on Luna Base cost us thousands of workers. We need more time." The alien's mouthparts moved in what might have been a smile. But it was not a kind smile. "Time is something you do not have. The Empire does not wait for weak species to solve their problems." Other aliens in the room made clicking sounds. Kira realized they were laughing at her. Her hands made fists at her sides. "What do you want from us?" she asked. Vexthal stood up. He was so tall that his head almost touched the ceiling. His 6 arms spread wide. "The Empire has a task, a dangerous task. Many of our best soldiers have tried and failed. We need someone who does not matter, someone we can lose." The alien moved closer to Kira. She could smell something like rotting flowers on his breath. "There is a place in space that our people call the Void Sector. It is very far from here. Strange things happen there. Ships go in, but they never come out. We have lost 17 groups of our finest warriors." Kira's heart began to beat faster. She knew where this was going. "We want one human to go there," Vexthal continued. "If they come back with information about what happens in that place, we will forget what Earth owes us. Your debt will be gone." "And if they don't come back?" Kira asked. The alien's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Then Earth will pay double what it owes now. We will take your cities. We will take your people. We will make them work in our mines until they die." Kira felt sick. This was not a bargain. This was a trap. The aliens knew that whoever went to the Void Sector would die. They were just playing with Earth like a cat plays with a mouse before killing it. "How long do we have to decide?" she asked. "You have 1 day," Vexthal said. "Bring us your volunteer tomorrow, or we start taking your cities." The meeting was over. Kira walked out of the chamber on shaking legs. In the hallway outside, she found her friend Jinho waiting for her. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had been Earth's military advisor for many years. "How bad is it?" he asked. Kira told him everything. When she finished, Jinho was quiet for a long time. They walked together through the space station that served as a meeting place between humans and aliens. Through the big windows they could see Earth spinning slowly in space. It looked so beautiful and peaceful. It was hard to believe that it might be destroyed soon. "The Void Sector," Jinho said finally. "I have heard stories about that place." "Bad stories? What kind of stories?" "Ships that go there and disappear. Not just destroyed, they vanish completely. Like they never existed. Some people say the space there is broken. Others say there are things living in the darkness that eat metal and flesh." They reached the human section of the station. It was much smaller than the alien areas. Everything was built for people their size. It felt good to be somewhere that felt like home. "We need to find someone," Kira said. Someone who will volunteer to go. Who would do such a thing? Jinho asked. It is suicide. Before Kira could answer, a door opened nearby. A woman in a military uniform walked out. She was not very tall, but she looked strong. Her black hair was cut short. Her face had several scars. One went from her left ear to her chin. Another crossed her forehead of her right eye. Captain Yuna, Jinho said with surprise. I thought you were still in the medical ward. The woman looked at them with dark eyes that seemed very tired. They let me out yesterday. Clean bill of health, they said. Ready for duty. Her voice was flat and empty. Kira remembered the stories about Captain Yuna. She had led a team of soldiers to defend a human colony on a distant planet. The aliens had attacked with overwhelming force. Yuna's team had held them off long enough for the colonists to escape. But every single soldier under her command had died. Only Yuna came back alive. I heard what you were talking about, Yuna said. The Void Sector. You need someone to go there. Yuna, no, Jinho said quickly. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. Yuna's voice was still flat. Someone has to go die so Earth can live. I am the perfect choice. Why would you do this? Kira asked. Yuna was quiet for a moment. She looked out the window at Earth. My team died because of my orders. 23 good people. They trusted me and I got them killed. I should have died with them. That was not your fault, Jinho said. You saved thousands of colonists. Did I? Yuna turned to look at him. Or did I just delay the inevitable? The aliens will keep coming. They will keep taking our worlds. Maybe if I do this thing, if I go to their cursed Void Sector, maybe I can buy Earth sometime. Kira felt a strange mix of hope and sadness. Are you sure about this? I am sure. Yuna nodded. Tell the aliens they have their volunteer. The next day, they returned to the council chamber. Vexthal looked pleased when they told him about Yuna. His mouth parts moved in that terrible smile again. A female warrior, he said. How appropriate. We will give her a ship with basic life support, nothing more. If she succeeds in bringing back useful information, Earth's debt is forgiven. If she fails. He did not need to finish the sentence. That evening, Yuna stood in the docking bay, looking at her ship. It was small and old. The aliens had made sure it had just enough fuel and air to reach the Void Sector. There was no extra food or water, no weapons, no advanced equipment. Jinho stood beside her. You don't have to do this, he said one last time. Yes, I do. Yuna climbed into the ship. Take care of Earth while I'm gone. The ship's engine started with a loud roar. Jinho watched as it lifted off and flew toward the darkness of space. Soon it was just a small dot of light. Then, it was gone. Somewhere in that vast darkness waited the Void Sector. And whatever lived there was about to meet humanity for the first time. Captain Yuna had been flying for 8 days when she first noticed something was wrong. The stars around her ship began to look different. They were not as bright as they should be. Some of them seemed to flicker like candles in the wind. Her instruments made strange beeping sounds. The navigation computer could not figure out where she was. The fuel gauge jumped up and down for no reason. Even the simple air recycler started making noises it had never made before. This is not normal, Yuna said to herself. She had flown many different ships during her years as a soldier. None of them had ever acted like this. On the 10th day, she entered the edge of the Void Sector. The moment her ship crossed the invisible boundary, everything changed. The stars in front of her began to die. Not slowly like they were supposed to over millions of years. They went dark in minutes. Yuna watched in horror as a bright blue star simply vanished. One moment it was there, shining like a jewel. The next moment there was only black space. Then another star disappeared, and another. Her ship's hull began to shake. The metal groaned and creaked like an old house in a storm. Warning lights flashed on her control panel. The computer voice spoke in a flat tone. Hull integrity at 80%, cause unknown. Yuna checked all the systems. There was no damage she could see, no holes in the hull, no impacts from space debris. But something was eating away at her ship from the outside. Hull integrity at 60%. She tried to turn around and fly back the way she came. But the navigation system would not respond. The stars behind her had moved to different places. The path home was gone, hull integrity at 40%. The air in the cabin began to taste strange. It was still breathable, but it had a metallic flavor that made her tongue feel numb. The lights flickered on and off. In the moments of darkness, Yuna thought she saw things moving outside her windows. But when the lights came back on, there was nothing there. On the 12th day, disaster struck. A loud crack echoed through the ship. Yuna felt the air pressure. Dropping fast, the hull had finally broken. Emergency protocols activated, the computer announced. Prepare for evacuation. Yuna grabbed her emergency suit and helmet. She had practiced this drill many times, but never in a situation like this. As she sealed her helmet, she could hear the ship tearing itself apart around her. She made it to the escape pod just as the main hull split in two. The pod launched automatically, carrying her away from the dying ship. Through the small window, she watched her vessel dissolve. The metal seemed to melt like ice in hot water. Within minutes, there was nothing left. The escape pod was much smaller than the main ship. It had air for maybe 3 days. Food and water for 2. The communication system was too weak to reach anyone. Yuna was alone in the deepest part of space with no way to call for help. She drifted for hours through the strange darkness. The pod's instruments could not make sense of what they were seeing. Sometimes they showed empty space. Sometimes they showed solid matter where there should be nothing. The readings changed every few seconds, like the universe could not make up its mind. Then Yuna saw something that should not exist. In the distance was a structure. It was huge, bigger than any space station she had ever seen. But it kept fading. In and out of sight. One moment it was solid and real. The next moment it was like a ghost. What is that thing? She whispered. The structure seemed to be calling to her. Not with sound or radio signals. It was something deeper than that. Something that spoke to her bones and blood. She had no choice but to go toward it. As her pod got closer, Yuna could see that the structure was not built by any race she knew. The shape was all wrong. Parts of it bent in directions that hurt to look at. Walls connected to other walls in ways that made no sense. It was like someone had taken a normal building and twisted it through dimensions that should not exist. The pod's docking system found a port that seemed to fit. The connection was not smooth. Metal scraped against metal with sounds like screaming, but it held. Yuna put on her emergency suit and opened the airlock. The air inside the structure was breathable but thick. It felt heavy in her lungs. The gravity was strange too. Sometimes she felt normal weight. Sometimes she felt like she was floating. In some corridors, the gravity seemed to pull her toward the walls instead of the floor. Yuna walked through passages that should not exist. She turned, left 3 times and somehow ended up behind where she started. She climbed stairs that went up but brought her down. The structure was alive in a way that made her skin crawl. Emergency lights flickered along the walls. They were not electric lights. They glowed with colors that had no names. Some of them made her eyes water when she looked at them directly. "Hello?" She called out. Her voice echoed strangely. It sounded like many people were speaking at once. There was no answer. But Yuna felt like she was being watched. Not by cameras or sensors. By something that could see through her skin and bones to the thoughts in her mind. She kept walking deeper into the structure. The passages led her toward the center, whether she wanted to go there or not. Every path she took, every door she opened, brought her closer to something that waited in the heart of this impossible place. Finally, she found herself in a vast round room. The walls curved up and up until they disappeared in shadow. In the center of the room was a sphere of perfect darkness. It was not black like the space between stars. It was the complete absence of light and hope and warmth. But as Eunice stared at the sphere, she began to see things inside it. Lights that were not lights, shapes that were not shapes. Her mind tried to understand what she was seeing, but could not. The images changed too fast and were too strange. The sphere began to pulse, like a heartbeat. Each pulse sent waves of energy through the room. Una felt them pass through her body. They did not hurt, but they changed something deep inside her. Her DNA, her memories, her soul, all of it was being rewritten. She should have been afraid. She should have run away. But instead, Una stepped closer to the sphere. Something inside it was calling to her. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. As she reached out to touch the darkness, voices began to speak in her mind. They were old voices, ancient voices. They had been alone for so long that they had almost forgotten how to communicate. Finally, they whispered, "Someone who can hear us. Someone who can carry our gift." Una's hand touched the surface of the sphere. The moment her skin made contact, everything changed. The darkness rushed into her like a flood. But it was not evil darkness. It was the darkness before creation. The darkness that held infinite possibilities. And in that darkness, she found light. Inside the sphere of darkness, Una found herself somewhere else entirely. She was floating in a space that was not space. Around her were beings made of pure thought and energy. They had no bodies like she understood them. Instead, they were patterns of light that moved and changed like living mathematics. "Do not be afraid," one of them spoke to her mind. "We are the architects. We built this universe and many others before it." Una tried to speak but realized she had no voice here. Instead, her thoughts became words that the beings could hear. "What is this place?" she asked. "This is a testing ground," another architect explained. "We create these spaces throughout the universe to find species that are ready to grow beyond their physical forms." Images began to flow into Una's mind. She saw the history of the void sector. Long ago, the architects had built this strange region of space as a trial. Any race that could navigate its dangers and approach them with the right intentions would be offered a great gift. "Many species have tried," the first architect continued. "The Zephyrians sent their greatest warriors. They came with weapons and conquest in their hearts. The darkness consumed them because they sought to dominate rather than understand." Una saw flashes of the 17 failed expeditions. Alien soldiers in advanced armor, carrying powerful weapons. They had tried to fight the strangeness of the void sector. They had tried to force their way through with technology and violence. All of them had been destroyed not by the architects, but by their own inability to let go of their need to control. "But you are different," a third architect said. "You came here expecting to die. You had no thought of conquest or personal gain. You offered your life to save your people. This is why the barriers that destroyed others could not touch you." More images flowed through Una's consciousness. She saw her own journey to this place. The way her ship had been allowed to reach the structure when others had been torn apart. The way the passages had guided her to this central chamber. Everything had been a test of her intentions. "We offer you a choice," the architects said together. Their combined voice was like music made of starlight. "You can return to your people with knowledge that will change everything. Or you can stay here with us and help guide other species who are ready to evolve." "What kind of knowledge?" Una asked. The answer came not in words, but in direct understanding. She saw technologies that could bend space and time. Methods of creating energy from pure thought. Ways to travel between dimensions. Most importantly, She saw how consciousness itself could be used as a tool to reshape reality, but she also saw the price. To carry this knowledge back to Earth, she would have to become something more than human. The architects would place a fragment of their essence inside her. She would gain incredible abilities, but she would also become a bridge between the physical world and the realm of pure thought. Will I still be me? She asked. You will be yourself, but expanded, they assured her. Your memories, your personality, your love for your people, all of that will remain. But you will also carry within you the light of creation itself. Yuna thought about Earth. She pictured Jinho waiting and worrying about her. She saw the cities full of people who had no idea their fate depended on her choice. She remembered the alien threat hanging over her world like a sword. If I go back, will I be able to protect Earth from the Zephyrians? You will be able to do much more than that, the architects replied. You will be able to offer them the same choice we are offering you, the chance to evolve beyond their current limitations. And if they refuse, then they will face the consequences of their actions. But you will have the power to defend those who cannot defend themselves. Yuna made her decision. I want to go back. My people need me. The architects moved around her in complex patterns. She felt energy building in the space between dimensions. Very well. But understand that once this change begins, it cannot be undone. You will carry our light for the rest of your existence. I understand. The transformation began slowly. Yuna felt warmth spreading through her body. But this was not ordinary heat. It was the warmth of stars being born, of galaxies taking shape, of consciousness awakening for the first time. The light entered her cells one by one. Her DNA was rewritten with information that had existed since the first moments after the Big Bang. Her brain was expanded to hold concepts that no human mind had ever contained. Her heart was strengthened to bear the weight of infinite compassion. As the process continued, Yuna began to see things differently. The darkness around her was not empty space. It was full of potential. Every shadow held the possibility of creation. Every silence contained unspoken words that could reshape reality. She could feel the architect's vast intelligence becoming part of her own. Their billions of years of accumulated wisdom flowed into her memories. She learned about species that had transcended physical existence millions of years ago. She discovered technologies that made the most advanced human science look like child's toys. But most importantly, she understood the true nature of consciousness. It was not just something that happened inside brains. It was the fundamental force that gave meaning to the universe. Without conscious observers, reality was just random energy and matter. With consciousness, it became something beautiful and purposeful. The transformation is complete, the architects announced. You now carry within you the seed of transcendence. Your species will have the choice to grow beyond their current limitations or remain as they are. Yuna felt different, stronger, more complete. When she looked at her hands, she could see the light flowing under her skin like golden rivers. When she listened carefully, she could hear the music that held the universe together. How do I get back to Earth? She asked. You no longer need a ship, they told her. Space and time are tools that you can use now. Simply focus on where you want to be and reality will bend to bring you there. Yuna concentrated on home. She pictured the solar system with its bright yellow sun. She thought about Earth spinning peacefully in its orbit. She remembered the space station where she had met with the Zephyrian aliens. The strange structure around her began to fade. The architects' voices grew distant. Remember, they called to her across the dimensions. The light you carry is not a weapon. It is an invitation. Use it wisely. Then Yuna was floating in normal space again. But she was no longer in an escape pod. She was surrounded by a bubble of energy that protected her from the vacuum. The light inside her had created its own spacecraft from pure thought and will. Around her, The void sector looked different now. She could see the patterns that connected all things. The seemingly random destruction was actually a careful process of testing and selection. The darkness that had terrified her before was now as familiar as an old friend. Yuna began the journey home. But she was not the same person who had left Earth weeks ago. She was something new. Something that had never existed before in the history of the galaxy. That she was human and architect combined. Mortal and eternal. Limited and infinite. And she was bringing light to a universe that had forgotten how bright it could shine. The Zephyrian monitoring station at the edge of the void sector had been watching empty space for 3 months. Commander Zektar was bored and angry. His superiors had ordered him to wait here until the humans' remains drifted out of the cursed region. It was a waste of time and resources. "Still nothing, sir," reported his sensor operator. "Of course there is nothing." Zektar clicked his mandibles in annoyance. "The human died weeks ago. We should return to base and report the obvious failure." That was when the alarms began to sound. "Contact detected," the operator called out. "Something is coming out of the void sector." Zektar moved to the main screen. At first he saw only a small dot of light moving toward them. But as it got closer, his trained eye recognized the shape of an escape pod. "Impossible," he whispered. "Scan for life signs." The results made his blood freeze. Not only was there a human life form inside the pod, but the readings were stronger than they should be. Much stronger. The biometric sensors showed heart rate, brain activity, and cellular function that were far beyond normal human ranges. "Send a message to High Command," Zektar ordered. "Tell them the humans survived, and tell them something is very wrong." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Tyke received the transmission in his office at Defense Command. He had not slept well since Yuna left for the void sector. Every day he expected to hear that the Zephyrians were preparing to attack Earth. "Sir," his aide Mira burst through the door without knocking. "We have news about Captain Yuna." Tyke sat up straight. "Is she dead?" "No, sir. She is alive. And according to the Zephyrian reports, she is heading home." Tyke could not believe what he was hearing. 17 alien expeditions had vanished in the void sector. The greatest warriors of the Zephyrian Empire had failed to return. But somehow one human woman in a basic escape pod had survived. "How long until she reaches Earth?" he asked. "At current speed, about 6 hours." Tyke activated his emergency communications. Within minutes he was connected to leaders around the world. Ambassador Kira joined the call from the diplomatic station. Jinho connected from his post at the lunar defense grid. "This changes everything," Kira said. "If Yuna has information about the void sector, it could give us an advantage over the Zephyrians. If she truly survived that place," Jinho added, "then she may have discovered something incredible." But their celebration was premature. New reports began coming in from the Zephyrian fleet. Yuna's escape pod was behaving in ways that defied physics. It was moving through space without any visible propulsion. It was changing direction without firing thrusters. Most disturbing of all, it was traveling faster than light without using any known form of FTL drive. High Regent Vexthul himself took command of the situation. He assembled a war fleet of 50 ships and positioned them between the void sector and Earth. If the human had somehow gained dangerous knowledge, she would not be allowed to share it. "This human must be captured and studied," he announced to his fleet commanders. "Whatever happened to her in the void sector, it has made her into something that could threaten the Empire." The fleet moved to intercept Yuna's pod. Their weapons were charged and ready. Vexthul had no intention of letting her reach Earth alive, but when they arrived at the interception point, they found something that challenged everything they understood about reality. Yuna was no longer inside an escape pod. She was floating in open space without any protection. No helmet, no suit, no breathing apparatus. She should have died instantly from the vacuum. Instead, she looked completely comfortable. Her body was surrounded by a field of energy that pulsed, with colors that had no names. When the aliens tried to scan her, their instruments gave readings that made no sense. According to their sensors, she was simultaneously matter and energy, present and absent, human and something else entirely. Surrender yourself for examination. Vexthul broadcast to her. Yuna's response came not through radio waves but directly into the minds of every alien in the fleet. Her voice carried harmonics that resonated in dimensions beyond the physical. When she spoke, space itself seemed to listen. "I have returned with a message," she said. "Not just for the Zephyrian Empire, but for all species who think they understand the nature of existence." Vexthul felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Not fear of death or pain, but fear of the unknown. This human had become something that his species had no reference for. "You will submit to our authority," he demanded, trying to sound commanding. "You are still just one weak human against the might of our fleet." Yuna smiled, and her smile was visible across the vast distance of space. "I am human, yes, but I am also something more. I carry within me the light that existed before the first stars were born. I have been chosen to offer your species the same gift that was offered to me." "What gift?" Vexthul asked despite himself. "The chance to evolve beyond your current limitations, to transcend the physical form and become beings of pure consciousness, to join the civilization that created this universe and countless others." The alien fleet commanders exchanged nervous communications. This was not what they expected from a defeated enemy. Yuna was speaking to them not as a conquered prisoner, but as a teacher offering wisdom. "Your empire has existed for thousands of years," Yuna continued. "You have conquered many worlds and enslaved many species. But all of that conquest has been driven by fear. Fear that there is not enough resources. Fear that other species will threaten you. Fear that you are alone in an uncaring universe." Vexthul's mandibles clicked angrily. "We fear nothing." "Then why did you send me to die instead of going yourselves?" Yuna asked. "Why did your greatest warriors fail where one human succeeded?" "It is because you approached the void sector with weapons and hatred. I approached it with acceptance and sacrifice." She moved closer to the fleet, not by firing engines or using technology, but by willing herself through space. The energy field around her expanded as she approached, and the alien ship systems began to malfunction. "Stay back," Vexthul warned. "We will fire on you." "You may try," Yuna replied calmly. "But violence is no longer something I fear. I have seen what lies beyond death, beyond matter, beyond the small concerns that drive your empire. I offer you the chance to see it too." The High Regent gave the order to fire. 50 warships unleashed their most powerful weapons at the lone human floating in space. Energy beams that could destroy planets focused on her position, but when the light faded, Yuna was still there. The weapons had passed through her energy field like light through water. She had not been harmed in any way. "Your turn is over," she said. "Now it is time for you to learn." Yuna raised her hands, and the light inside her began to grow brighter. It spread out from her body like ripples on a pond. When it touched the alien ships, something incredible happened. The warships did not explode or break apart. Instead, they began to change. Their weapons transformed into tools of creation rather than destruction. Their armor became transparent, revealing the beauty of their internal systems. Their engines now ran on pure thought instead of fuel. Inside the ships, the alien crews felt the change too. The hatred and superiority that had driven them for so long simply vanished. In its place came understanding, compassion, and wonder at the beauty of existence. Vexthul stared at his transformed flagship in amazement. Everything was different, but somehow better. His own body felt lighter, more complete. His mind was clearer than it had ever been. "What have you done to us?" he asked, but there was no anger in his voice anymore. "I have shown you what you could become," Yuna replied. "This is the gift the architects offer to any species ready to receive it. The choice is yours. You can embrace this evolution or return to your old ways." For the first time in his long life, High Regent Vexthul of the Zephyrian Empire bowed his head to another being. "Teach us," he said. Earth watched in amazement as the Zephyrian warfleet approached their planet. But these were not the same ships that had threatened them before. The vessels moved with grace instead of aggression. Their hulls glowed with soft light. Instead of weapons, they carried what looked like gifts. Admiral Tyke stood in the command center watching the approaching fleet. Beside him, Jinho shook his head in disbelief. "I have been a soldier for 30 years, Jinho said. "I have never seen anything like this." The lead ship was different from the others. It was smaller and moved ahead of the fleet like a guide. Through the view screen, they could see a human figure floating beside it. Captain Yuna had returned home, but she was no longer the same woman who had left Earth months ago. Even at this distance, they could see the change in her. Light seemed to flow beneath her skin. When she moved, space itself bent around her. She was still human, but she was also something far greater. "Open a channel," Admiral Tyke ordered. Yuna's voice filled the command center. It carried the same warmth they remembered, but now it also held depths of wisdom that seemed ancient. "Hello, old friends," she said. "I have much to tell you." Within hours, representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the main assembly hall. The Zephyrian fleet remained in orbit, but they made no threatening moves. Instead, their ships projected beautiful patterns of light that could be seen even in daylight. Yuna appeared in the center of the hall without using any doors or transportation. One moment the space was empty. The next moment she was there, surrounded by her field of gentle energy. The assembled leaders stared at her in wonder and fear. She looked like the Yuna they remembered, but the light in her eyes was unlike anything they had ever seen. "My friends," she began, "I have returned from a place beyond the edge of known space. There I met beings older than our galaxy. They taught me truths that will change everything we think we know about existence." She gestured, and images appeared in the air around her. The assembly saw visions of the architects, beings of pure consciousness who had created countless universes. They saw technologies that could reshape matter with thought alone. They witnessed civilizations that had transcended physical form entirely. "These beings offer us a choice," Yuna continued. "We can remain as we are, struggling with the limitations of flesh and metal and the slow pace of physical existence. Or we can evolve into something greater." Ambassador Kira stood up from her seat. "What would that mean for humanity?" "It means we would gain abilities that seem like magic to us now," Yuna replied. "We could travel between stars by willing ourselves there. We could create matter from pure energy. We could communicate across any distance instantly. Most importantly, we could understand the true connection between all living things." "And the cost?" asked President Chun from the Asian Federation. "There is no cost, only change. We would still be human in all the ways that matter. Our memories, our love for each other, our creativity and stubbornness and hope, all of that would remain. But we would also gain wisdom and power beyond our current dreams." The questions came fast after that. How would this change happen? Would everyone be forced to evolve? What about people who were afraid of such transformation? Yuna answered each question with patience. The evolution would happen gradually, she explained. It would start with volunteers who were ready to embrace the change. Others could take as long as they needed to decide. No one would be forced. "But what about the Zephyrians?" Jinho asked. "They came here to conquer us. They came here driven by fear and ignorance," Yuna replied. I have shown them a better path. High Regent Vexthul and his people are among the first to volunteer for the transformation. As if summoned. By her words, the alien leader entered the hall. But he too was changed. The arrogance and cruelty that had marked his species were gone. In their place was humility and genuine curiosity about these humans who had taught his people so much. "We owe humanity a great debt," Vexthul said through his translator. "We came here as conquerors, but learned that we were the ones who needed conquering, not by weapons, but by wisdom." Over the following weeks, Earth transformed in ways that seemed impossible. Volunteers from every nation stepped forward to receive Yuna's gift. The process was always gentle. People simply sat quietly while Yuna placed her hands on their heads. Light would flow between them, and when it was done, another human had joined the growing community of evolved beings. The changes were remarkable. Cities began to reshape themselves as people learned to manipulate matter with conscious will. Transportation became unnecessary as individuals could move themselves anywhere on Earth instantly. Energy problems vanished as humans learned to draw power directly from the quantum field that underlies all reality. But the most important change was in how people treated each other. The light that Yuna carried contained not just power, but profound compassion. Those who received it found themselves unable to hate or harm others. Conflicts that had lasted for centuries simply ended as former enemies recognized their fundamental connection. Not everyone chose to evolve immediately. Some people were afraid of losing their humanity. Others wanted to study the process more carefully first. Yuna assured them all that there was no pressure and no time limit. "The light will wait for you as long as you need," she told them. "When you are ready, it will be here." Meanwhile, news of Earth's transformation spread throughout the galaxy. Ships from dozens of civilizations began arriving in the solar system. Their crews had heard rumors of humans who had gained incredible abilities and were sharing them freely. The visitors came expecting to find conquerors or tyrants. Instead, they found beings of incredible power who wanted nothing more than to help others grow and learn. Many of these alien species had been struggling with the same problems that had once plagued humanity: war, scarcity, hatred between different groups. Yuna and the growing number of evolved humans offered the same gift to all of them. Some accepted immediately. Others needed time to overcome their fear and suspicion. A few rejected the offer entirely and returned to their home worlds. "That is their choice," Yuna told her human companions. "We cannot force wisdom on those who are not ready to receive it." 6 months after her return from the Void Sector, Yuna stood on a hill overlooking the transformed Earth. Cities of light stretched to the horizon. In the sky above, ships from 100 different worlds moved in peaceful formations. The planet, that had once been isolated and threatened, was now the center of a growing community of evolved civilizations. Jinho found her there as the sun was setting. He had chosen to receive the transformation early, and now he too carried the inner light that connected all evolved beings. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Giving up your old life to become what you are now?" Yuna smiled as she watched children playing in a nearby field. Some of them were human. Others were young aliens whose parents had chosen to settle on Earth. All of them laughed and played together without any thought of difference or separation. "How can I regret bringing light to the darkness?" she replied. "I was sent to die in the Void Sector, but instead I found life. Not just for myself, but for every being ready to embrace it." Above them, the stars shone brighter than they ever had before. And among those stars, new civilizations were learning that they did not have to face the universe alone. Thanks to one human woman who had carried light out of the deepest darkness, the galaxy was becoming a place of hope instead of fear. The transformation was just beginning. But already, beings across thousands of worlds were discovering what Yuna had learned. In that strange structure at the edge of reality, that consciousness was not just something that happened inside individual minds, but the force that connected all things in an endless web of light and love. Humanity had been chosen not to rule over other species, but to serve as bridges between the physical and the transcendent. And in accepting that role, they had found their true destiny among the stars. The light bearer had come home, and she had brought the dawn of a new age with her.